How's it going? Mike Raetz with Ice Team. We're out here shopping today. I'm going to break down my 3 favorite presentations for catching more panfish on the ice. So when we get to the lake, the first objective is to find fish. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look for a search lure. I'm going to look for something that's going to be big, something that's going to be flashy, something that's going to make a lot of motion in the water. You're going to want to have a good rod for that as well. Something I like is the legendary meat stick. It's a soft tip, but it's still a hard end to it so you can get a good pound. And that's the big thing, is we want to search for fish. We're not using small little jigs at this point. We're taking big lures, we're searching a vast area of deep basins, and we're trying to call fish into us. One of those lures that I like the most is the Pinhead Pro. That is a phenomenal lure for that. I like to start off with a 16th ounce. It's a much bigger profile, and it's going to allow me to be more efficient getting down quick on those fish. So once I start pounding, it's throwing a bunch of flash. The blades really help. I'm able to get up and down in that water column fast. And if there's not fish there, I can pick up and move to the next. So the big key to when you're searching for these fish to begin with is to work that entire water column, get something big and flashy, have a good setup so when those fish do come in, you can feel the bite, set the hook, and catch the fish itself. Once you're rigging these, once you're getting your line set up, what I like to use is a 4-pound test. I am a big mono person when it comes to noodle type rods. I feel like you get a lot more feel out of the rod itself rather than having that fluorocarbon. It's going to give a good cushion to it. You know, rigging to it, like I said, 4-pound test. I like a 4-pound test because it's a little bit heavier, but then also it's still light. You know, the Frost line is a great setup for that because it's a true pound test. So that 4-pound test is going to still be that thin diameter, but give me the power I need to muscle that lure up and down and catch these fish without having to retie constantly. You know, another thing that I like to do with the Pinhead Pro when I'm searching is I use a loop knot. I don't just use the keeper that comes on there, or the snap. I like to do a loop knot. It's going to let the bait move around a lot more, and it's going to be a very strong knot itself. So when I'm searching, that's the biggest thing I want, is I want the lure to move as much as it can through the water, move water, make a bunch of flash, bring fish into me. So after we've located fish, we figured out the school, now it's time to figure out the bite. The next rod I'm going to move to is something like a noodle rod. Very soft, allowing me to use those heavier tungsten. Okay, the katana rod is phenomenal for that. It's a 30-inch noodle rod. I like using a longer rod when it comes to my panfish applications. I feel like I get a lot more feel out of the rod. I get a lot more cushion in the rod, and it helps in all aspects of things. Fighting the fish, setting the hook on the fish, you name it, you got it. So that's what I really love about the katana. It's a very light tip, but what this is going to allow me to do now is, instead of using that spoon, we've used that as a search lure. Now we've located this fish. I'm going to move into something like the drop kick jig. The drop kick jig is phenomenal for that because it's got a great kicking motion. It's going to allow you to push a lot of water in a smaller profile and catch a bunch more fish. One of my favorite colors that I like to use in that is the glow red. I think it's a very neutral color when it comes to it. Fish can see it very well. It glows very bright. You can put a phenomenal amount of plastics on these. You can run maggots, and this bait is meant to kick, so it's going to move water, it's going to push that lateral line, and it's going to let those fish bite a lot easier. If things are getting really negative though, what I'm going to do is I'm going to move down to something even more lighter than that. You know, when we get into these katanas, these are great for the noodles, but when things get tough, when things get negative, when it's cold, they're deep, they don't want to bite, I'm going to move to a spring bobber. Okay, so a spring bobber is going to allow me to take a lighter tungsten jig, get it down there, and be able to see that bite from the tip of this. And when I talk about a smaller tungsten jig, I'm talking about something like the drop series. The drop series is great. I'm going to go down to sometimes a 14, even a 16, depending on the bite of those fish. And where this works hand in hand with each other is I'm going to be able to take this small of a tungsten jig and still be able to detect the bite, keep the groove going with the bait itself, push the water, move the plastic, and catch the fish all at once. So when it comes down to a selection of rods, you really want to have those set up in mind. So when I'm going to start searching, I'm going to go something like the meat stick, a little bit heavier tip on there. That's going to allow me to use like the pinhead, the leech flutter spoon, you know, a wide variety of things. When I find these fish and they're biting good, I'm going to drop down to something like a drop jig and use that katana rod. It's going to have that softer noodle tip to it. It's going to allow me to be efficient with it. It's going to hook up on a lot more fish. And then when things get negative, I'm gonna run to a spring bobber rod so I can run that smaller tungsten jig to be able to get those fish to bite and obviously put more fish on the ice. So that's my 3 favorite presentations for fishing in the wintertime. Check them out. Do some little tinkering with the stuff you have in the garage. Go out there, find these fish, catch these fish, and have a great day on the ice.